Hey guys, just a quick note before this video starts. These were some interviews that I made back in December, so they're a little dated, but I was just really lazy and didn't get a chance to release them or edit them back then, so these are a little, again, back from December. Just, just fair warning, some things are outdated a little bit, but for the most part, everything's still pretty relevant.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Testing.
Peter Pepper picked the peppers. I said peppers. I said peckers. That is hilarious.
Alright, Prime. Grendel Prime. One of my... How long you been with the clan, Prime?
Since the beginning.
You're one of the ones that playing since beta, right? You played since beta?
I'm not sure. I can't really recall if I played the beta or not. I might have, but definitely a day one person. So.
Definitely, yeah. So yeah, so if any of you have actually watched or seen still, in the videos I've posted, Prime comes up a lot. A lot of clips, a lot of pictures, a lot of screenshots. He's the rightful second in command, I guess you could say, for the clan.
The pain in the ass, that's more like it.
Yeah, he's definitely
always complaining.
Yeah, that too. He's definitely always been through it all as well. Every DLC, every raid, every problem, every little thing we've had within the clan and Destiny itself. And well, yeah. So obviously, within the how long has Destiny been out? For like 4 or 5 years total.
Yeah, probably. What, they're halfway through their thing. Let's see. What was the original release? I don't know. It says 2015, but I don't think that's it.
I think it
was earlier than that.
2014 maybe.
Yeah. Possibly. I thought it was like a Christmas season, yeah, that year. But I could be wrong.
Yeah,
so, like what, 4 years? 4 years going on 5?
Yeah, about that. Destiny's still going strong, probably could say. More or less.
It's had its ups and downs, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Tons of
ups and downs. People.
Yeah, a lot. They've definitely changed quite a bit. If you looked at Destiny from like day one compared to now, it's quite a bit of change.
Yeah, a huge amount of changes. Yeah, some for good, some for bad. You know, obviously I think they picked up on a lot of things that were nice changes along the way from Destiny 1 and the expansions, but you know, there's still some rough edges here and there. Things that I used to like that aren't around anymore, but you know, it is what it is.
It's true. A lot of things they added, a lot of things they got rid of.
Yeah, can someone say ammo synth? My favorite thing in the world.
Heavy ammo
synth. Exactly, heavy ammo synth.
That was an interesting change.
That was like, it was. I mean, of course, you now have candy all over the floor that you could pick up, and you get your, you know, your stuff back. But it was so nice to be able to just go pick that up before a raid or a nightfall and be ready.
Yeah, be stocked for the raid.
Exactly.
Whatever you needed. Whatever situation.
Exactly. Of course, back then, if you didn't have that, you still had the icebreaker, self-reloading ammo, you know, but nowadays we don't have that type of thing, so.
Yeah, nowadays it's different. Now we have
definitely
armor perks with heavy ammo, finder, that may or may not work.
Don't always work. Yeah, exactly. Like nobody knows the science behind it. You know, what's the algorithm? 50-50. Yeah, exactly. It works great on the gauntlet, but doesn't work great on the boots. Who knows?
Exactly. You know? There's also that that change where every orange health bar enemy dropped a heavy ammo brick. Remember that?
Barely, but yes, I do remember it being prevalent. Now it's very stingy, that's for sure. And it's always stingy for the weapon that you use the most. I don't know how that is, you know? Because you know you need shotgun shells, but special will never drop for some reason. It's all like, yes, this game is trolling me.
Back in the old D1 days, and how things before Taken King were more or less they're okay, I guess. With the Dark Below and House of Wolves.
Yeah, it was a new game. Yeah, it was a new game. You're getting used to the play style. I would say it was different than any other game that I kind of played in a sense. I mean, yes, it reminded you of certain games, but it was a nice menagerie of a couple of different models of games. So, you had a little bit of role-playing element, a lot of specking of weapons, really not crafting of anything, but you did have a lot of mats of materials, right, that you had to go get, that type of stuff.
Like spin metal
for quests.
All that.
Yeah, so there was a lot of that going on. And plus you were learning a whole new world and story behind it. So, as you know, for me, one of the things is the lore. I love a good game with a good story, and so, having the lore and just the immersiveness of the environment and the universe and just getting to know it was really good. The Grimoire cards were awesome in a way, but also at the same time kind of
very lacking.
One of the things, well, they were lacking because if you didn't go searching for them and reading them and putting every single one together, I'm glad for those YouTubers out there that investigated all that stuff and then would do a nice video story montage of all that stuff.
That's true.
Because I just did not want to do that. It's like, nope, I cannot spend my time reading this book every time one popped up. But it was kind of cool to chase that stuff back then. So, the little chase elements that they had all over, getting the cards, getting the ghosts, finding these chests. So, that was kind of cool. So there were some nice elements at the outset, but it was rough in comparison to the way it is now.
Yeah, it is now. They kind of fixed it.
Yeah, in a sense. I would say that they learned certain things. I mean, obviously, I think the best part of the initial Destiny before the Taken King, if I had a favorite aspect of the game, was really the raid, right? The Vault of Glass raid was just awesome. I think that was like the best experience you had with friends in a match. Once you learn all the mechanics and so forth, and just
that's right.
Watching people kind of go through that, that was unique and kind of satisfying in a way. Outside of, I think the last experience that I had with that would be World of Warcraft and kind of doing raids and things there. And I really didn't play any other games that had that, although I know there were other games that did. So for me, that was really cool. But see, WoW for me was a PC-based experience. I didn't really have that on a console at the time, and Destiny was really bringing that kind of PC experience for me onto console in terms of playing with other people and enjoying and learning mechanics together and real deep teamwork, because that really took everyone doing their role. You couldn't necessarily do that yourself. You got teleported in to the other realm. You weren't doing anything. If that person messed up, that there's not much you can do on the outside. So I think that was pretty cool to go ahead and learn how those mechanics worked, and really back to the benefit of having a clan or a guild where you really saw the benefit of playing with people consistently, because they learned how you play, you learned how they play. So all of that was really nice in the outset.
Yeah, with the whole raid experience, that was definitely something that was like there was nothing for consoles at the time, for sure. That was a sort of like, there was some games you could play with like 3 other people, like maybe like Borderlands type, maybe is like closest you kind of get, but when you start getting like 6 people together for like a console type game, that's something that's like new, and a lot of people are new to that kind of experience, and especially if they only ever played consoles for their lives or whatever. And I think that was
and
like
definitely from.
All right, go ahead.
Right. Oh, I was gonna say definitely from a PvE experience. Where all of you are on the same team fighting the AI, right, or the characters in the world. You had the Call of Duties and everything else, which were a lot of PvP experiences. So you had a lot of players in that realm, but it was really that's that's a PvP experience. From a PvE standpoint, where everyone had to play a role, the right set of weapon loadouts, the thought process and strategies that went into that, how the community came together to figure out strategies, what the best strat was. Remember the 6-man Galahorns, back then.
Exactly.
So things like that. You figure out the best methods, around things, or like remember when you can go ahead and push the boss off the cliff. Easy wins until that was patched.
Cheese
Stuff
strats.
like that was kind of like, yeah, exactly, cheese strats. Just finding out about all that stuff. It was really new to consoles. You're right, in terms of the 6-man and the PvE aspect of it. So I thought that was really cool at the time.
So what do you, as somebody who, again, like me, is a recurring player, for a game like this compared to, like, if you were playing, like, a game like Borderlands, or, like, what kind of, like, was like, oh, yes, I want to come back and keep grinding, or keep doing the things, or compared to, like, different games, do you think?
Well, I think where that started for me, where I got more deeply involved, really was around the Taken King. I think that game's dynamics in terms of the story, the immersiveness, the weapons, and just the raid mechanics and the nightfalls and things like that. Everything worked out really well in that one. And what I mean by that is, like, I constantly talk about some of the stuff I miss, like the auto reloading weapons, right?
Yes,
Some of the weapons today have that, but yes, the Tekken King weapons were great. The fact that when you got the which one was it? Touch of Malice, there was a purpose to that weapon, right? It made a segment of that raid
super easy.
Really, really super easy, right? But, everything had a sense of purpose. Even the challenges were really great, to learn them and to do them. And I don't know, it was really fun in that regard. I love practically all aspects of that. I also love the aspects of, that's where they started introducing from then on time-gated stuff. Okay, that's where they started introducing just little elements that were in there. I think wasn't around that time where you had the your weapon rolls and so forth, the gunsmiths, wasn't around the same time.
Yes,
I'm trying to go remember. And when did Black Spindle go ahead and drop around the same time as well? So
yeah, right about Taken King.
So they started adding, so some of the things that we're used to now that we kind of take for granted, time-gated exotic weapon quests, particular weapons that are great for certain bosses, things like that. That stuff started coming with the Taken King, and that's kind of where it started becoming more of an experience for me, and something that I would drive to every week to play. And a lot of my other games fell by the wayside. So that's one thing. I think, most of our clan mates liked Rise of Iron. I was okay with that aspect. I wasn't too into that particular raid, and I couldn't really tell you why. It just didn't appeal to me that much. So I definitely didn't play that one as much as I did all the previous.
Right.
But I did like the environment. I did like the lore. I don't know. It was maybe something about the whole storyline of Siva. Sorry, spoiler for those that have not played it. So so Siva, I was like, what? Nanobite crap, whatever. So that was my thing. It's all like, I don't know where that fit in. It felt like an afterthought, okay? But I did like all the new supers, right? So obviously you got the Hammer of Soul, the Stormcaller, one of my favorite, and that's really where the Night Stalker came in, tethering shit. That stuff was just wonderful, right? So I think they constantly looked at ways to make things fresh. They learned some lessons from the Taken King and the Rise of Iron. And I appreciated that to some extent, although I think for me, the pinnacle of Destiny 1 really was the Taken King. That's where all the elements worked really well. And I guess when they decided to switch things up for Destiny 2, I could say I was one of those that said, WTF, what the fuck, You know, I get upset. You know, you
I think
changed a
a lot
lot
of
of
people,
things that
yeah.
I was like, yeah, that I was accustomed to because you wanted to make the game more accessible. But I came from the view that, you have a game out for a couple of years already. Those that wanted to play it would play it, okay, and those that didn't, just like any other game. I mean, you got to think of it this way. There's lots of players that play a game like EVE Online, right? I don't think they're going to dumb down EVE Online
Oh yeah.
for any newbies coming in, right? It's not going to happen, right? So, I mean, they'll probably give you a lot of stuff at the outset to make it easier for you, but at the same time, they're not going to ruin the core mechanics of the game. And I think what Destiny 2 did is change a lot of those core mechanics. We didn't have ammo drops anymore. The leveling system to get your,
Weapon change.
powers and weapon changes, all that stuff was just really dramatic. I can understand why it's a major release, so you made those, but it's almost like the what we call the sustaining team that was doing the development for the expansion wasn't talking to the new team.
Yeah, make
and
guys.
the new team, and the new team that was developing the new game just, was doing their own thing. They figured, oh, this stuff doesn't really work. This is not what I like. Let's try something different. And so I don't know. Some of those things kind of flopped. I'm trying to go ahead and think of something right off the bat in my head, but I think for me, the big one was really the ammo drops. I think the RNG got worse. You know.
That's true.
Yeah, and then also it just seemed everybody, like, I don't know, after the first 2 weeks, everybody was like, what, pretty high in level, right? So it seemed a lot easier of a game. So I can understand that from a new person's perspective. That's awesome because you get to end game content pretty quickly.
Yeah, without
But the
having
problem
to
is,
dedicate.
yeah, but part of that problem though is Destiny has never been a game where the whole community played the end game content. I mean, if you looked at Destiny 1 in the expansion, I forgot what the percentages were, but they were really low for the number of people who did Nightfall, number of people who did, the raid or did completions. I mean, and you had the whole LFG thing, trying to find people to play with. So I think some of those changes worked really well in terms of being able to find people to play with for the strikes and other things, some of the other events that are in the community. But so I think those were positive changes. But I don't know. I think making it so quick to level up and making it so easy to get stuff, while that was great to get to endgame, if you didn't play endgame content, you would feel like, hey, I completed the game, let me move on to something else. And if you notice, a lot of folks that we had in the clan, there'd be a lot of turnover during those periods, right? Because you get really bored with the game really fast, you'd leave, and then you'd be lucky if those people came back for an expansion time. So I think almost every expansion we had to do a clear of inactives just
Yes.
to get back to that. So what could I say about I don't know. I think they've been listening in a way with the new releases. I find the lore again really great. I think the fact that it's more story driven is a great thing. You get to learn more of each of the characters, the vanguards, all right, Akora, Cade, everybody's backstory. I like that. You get to find a little bit more of their disposition. I'm that type of player that likes to know more about a game that I'm in. Especially if I spend that much time in it. I'm not a PvPer, so I'll do some elements of that, but that's not really what I gravitate toward the game for, right? Is the whole environment and the PvE, and I think
Right.
where Destiny 2 takes a hint from the Taken King is it provides a lot of story element, right? There's a lot of things that surprise you in the game. They have a lot of those hidden side quests. They have, the lore is a little bit deeper. I think they have a more cohesive story, and you know what it is you're fighting for. Like one of the things I've always talked about in Destiny 1 was like, you would do things in each of these expansions, but none of the environment around you would change. So it felt like you had no impact to the world, right? Whereas now, if you look at the view that we're looking at, the city's being rebuilt down there. It looks alive. It looks active.
Traveler.
Okay. yeah, the
Sure.
Traveler, is changed. Even locations like now the Dreaming City, it changes from week to week, even though in a bad way.
Yeah.
But you could see the things that you do to the environment make a change to how things behave, how the lore changes, how characters interact. There's environmental changes that happen to that. And I also like the time-gated reveal of aspects of the story. I think the Dreaming City is kind of like a refreshing take, like the Taken King was, in the fact that that Forsaken aspect is just providing you trickling of stories to keep you coming back. Plus, I think they heard people saying that it's too quick to finish, when Destiny 2 first came out, and we're just kind of bored because it's rinse and repeat. Okay, it is a little bit of rinse and repeat now, but there's so much to do. Whereas before you could rinse and repeat for all three characters in 1 week, it is like really difficult right now to get everything done for three characters in a week.
It is.
It's like it is a lot of work. Okay, and at this point, I mean, from Destiny 1 on, let's see, from Destiny 1, all the expansions to Taken King, even the Rise of Iron, if you recall, I had a character on Xbox, I had 3 characters on PC, and 3 on PS4. Alright, so I was running everybody every week and still was able to keep it up, right? And I was still playing other games. Alright, now, I have no ability to maintain that level of characters. I mean, I left the PC guys, I left the Xbox guy. I'm dedicated to 2 players for sure. My Titan, my Warlock, sorry, my Hunter, you're not getting any love right now. All right, you feel behind, but we will get you there eventually. But, that type of stuff. So there's just too much content, to really play consistently. And you hear it all the time when you're on with teammates and clanmates that there's just so much content. And a lot of it is, how should I say, not time-gated, but it is progressively gated. And so what I mean by that is, if you have a teammate that hasn't played for 2 or 3 weeks, or they play only sparingly, they're going to be so far behind in a quest, right?
Exactly.
That when you go to play with them, there's certain aspects of the game you can't play with them because they haven't opened up the Tangled Shore, or they haven't opened up the Dreaming City, or they haven't opened up a forge. And you're like, hey, I can't do this with you,
Yeah,
and then the problem really is, you feel like, one, they feel like they're left behind, so there's that problem. And then the other aspect is for those folks that missed out on the Curse of Osiris or the Warmind, the 2 expansions prior to Forsaken. They're really far behind, particularly for weapons like the Warmind weapons that have become really valuable in the Forsaken, challenges. So, I think I skipped over those 2 expansions, Warmind and Curse of Osiris, as we've been talking here, and Destiny 2. I think they were nice in a sense, but they were lacking in terms of content, right? I mean, you had a new space that opened up, some new lore that was provided, some new weapons, but let's be honest. I mean, if you look at Curse of Osiris, right? What weapons from Curse of Osiris do you still use?
That's true.
We did a lot of that stuff, and that space is like a totally forgotten space. Brother Vance and all that other stuff. It's kind of like, it was a cool space to be in, and you have the maze. I like the fact that they reused that, okay, for the Halloween stuff. But I don't know. I mean, if they didn't reuse it for Halloween, people would forget to go there. No one will go to Mercury for any reason, right? You don't go back for any reason unless you're completing a triumph or something else. And that was the other thing. I think they learned from Rise of Iron and so forth. The Triumph books was a great way outside of the normal console trophies to get people involved in the game. And the whole new seal system is really cool, although the RNG for that crap, especially for ghosts, ships, and sparrows, sucks. Okay. Okay. But I think those were a learning aspect from Rise of Iron. Going from Taken King to Rise of Iron kind of introduced a lot of that stuff, the book, and being able to close out particular tasks on those pages and those, getting seals. I think that was really good to keep. Again, the time-gated stuff was really good to keep. I think the Warmind was better and learned some lessons from Curse of Osiris in terms of the story and Mars. I think the fact that we talked about public events were great, but they were kind of repetitive, and why couldn't we take more team members into an environment? And the fact that we got the 9-man escalation protocol, that was like totally awesome. All right, but obviously it had its problems too, right? The ability to only be able to do a fire team of 3, right, and go down into an environment. You couldn't take a fire team of 6, which you could take into the raid, but you couldn't take a 6-man team and drop down into escalation protocol, right? Which made it a pain in the ass. Now, the lucky thing is, most of us in the community, as Destinies want to do, we figure out workarounds, right? You figure out if you have 2 people in a geographically, geographically located. So, like, if you have 2 people in Southern California, if they teleport themselves into the same environment or the same section of the world multiple times, you eventually land on the same server. Right? Yes. Without being in party. So therefore you can get 3-man and 3-man that way. And if you had 3 people, you could all find each other on one server and do a 9-man with just clanmates, if that's what you want to do. But that was really cool about the fact that you could get in the environmental space a public event style thing that you can go ahead and work together in such a large group. And I think that continued obviously with the Forsaken and the Dreaming City, right? The Well, all right? That just plays really well to that as well, getting all those people and coordinated in alignment to work. And I think what I like about those two is you really, and even the Forge, you really don't need, well, the Forge is different, but the Well and the Escalation Protocol, they allow you to just like a public event to join in and not have to communicate with anybody. I mean, once you learn the mechanics of it, right? I mean, it was great if you had mic and you can communicate, but you could just go in and just start killing things. There's no thought process to it outside of, learning how to defeat each of the bosses. Because, if you were just an ad killer and you were great at killing ads, you can help the team in some form or fashion. The Forge is a little different because it does take some teaming mechanics. And if you don't go in there with a strategy and communicate a little bit, it makes it really difficult unless the guys have played it enough that they know how, what you're thinking of without telling them, right? Like you all know to go to the same section of the Forge to throw the batteries, instead of spreading out, that type of thing. And you can tell right away when a player doesn't know that because they're all the way on the other side of the map, right? Dying every 5 seconds. Yeah, and you could tell you've thrown 10 batteries and they've not got one in there, Or like the first time you go in there and a guy takes the battery and throws it at the enemies, thinking it's a shield knockdown mechanism, right? So I mean, those type of things. There's lots of funny moments that happen. I think a little bit more funny moments that have happened, like in Warmind and Forsaken, and I think they've kind of learned from that aspect. I think the stories are better. I think the time gates are great. I think the driving for weapons, they found that we love driving for weapons in Destiny 1, so being able to do that now. The modifiers, I'm not going to say, I wasn't a big grind for modifiers in the Destiny 1 days, so having them come back, okay, that's fine. Some of them are really good, obviously Rampage, Kill Clip, some of them, but other ones are like, why would you have that on this weapon? Like we talked about the other day, having an airborne skill on a pulse rifle, or a slide shot on a pulse rifle. It's like, why a slide shot on a shotgun makes sense on a pulse rifle? Why? You're not going to get enough shots off to make that effective. So I don't know. I think it's just in the loot pool and just the way it rotates it. I just don't think it should be in there for certain weapons. Yeah, and I don't know. I think little things like today, doing the Forge and finding the little hidden Forge mechanics that turn it into to get the extra lore items. Those are really cool.
Hmm.
So I think those little aspects to have us go through the environment and find out more things, the whole Dreaming City rotation and being able to go visit the Queen, the Ascendant challenges are really cool. That there's a whole nother world there if you just take the tincture, or as Mayo would call it, the dank drink.
Jank
I,
drink.
Dank drink. So from that point, so I don't know. Right now it feels really fun to play the game. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do, so I'm not complaining. But I think they learned from the backlash of changing it in Destiny 2. I think they probably went back and looked at what worked in the Taken King and the Rise of Iron, and said, okay, what aspects of that can we bring back here? I do miss with the latest expansion. I do miss a little bit of the story content that they provided. I did like some of the animation sequences and things like that. So definitely with this whole thing with the Forge, I am kind of missing that. Because I think they could have told a great story about the background of the Forges and their significance. And we kind of get that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit, but realistically, we're back to the Rimroar card issue, right? Where the tidbits are out there, but someone has to piece it together, and I'm not one to piece that stuff together. So, of course, I do my daily videos, right, or weekly videos to find out, what the lore guys think of late, and does it match what I've been thinking, that kind of thing. So I think it's a difficult balance for them of how to go ahead and do that. But I think it's enough where if you look at how many of our clanmates didn't buy the annual pass, and then all of a sudden how many have just bought it to get back into it. Exactly. Right? And now they're in, and it's so much content because you're not only playing Destiny 2, you're playing Curse of Osiris, you're playing Warmind, Forsaken, and now the latest ones.
They're like, oh my god, too much to do.
It's too much to do. It's just really too much. And most of them have just barely got to one character at a high enough level to even start experiencing end game content.
Let alone
right?
two more.
So, and so it's kind of like what you said, you can't go complaining because this is what the community complained about, and now you got it. So don't complain that you got too much now. It's like either feast or famine, So I don't know. I think the latest stuff are good changes, but there's certain things that I still complaining about. One of the things that I also like from Taken King on is the clan changes, especially for Destiny 2. Clan management, the fact that now it feels good to be in a clan because now there's bounties there, you get rewards.
Yeah, extra
rewards. We talked about the fact that in Destiny 1 there was no onus for a person to want to be in a clan. Outside of having a group to play with consistently and not having a look for people, there was no real benefit to being one, right? So now you get the benefit. Obviously, they've taken a clue from their Activision and Blizzard brethren, and Bungie has instituted seasons like Diablo, right? So we do have these seasonal things, which is cool in a sense. I hate the fact that it resets our clan stuff all the time, but whatever. And I still think they can make the clan system a little bit more beneficial. I think the levels that we reach, more glimmer, more legendary drops. Like, come on, after a certain power level, those legendary drops are crap. Okay, now if you tell me higher chance for an exotic drop, hey, I'm down. Okay, everybody would be in a clan tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, all right. Or like a ticking system. The longer you stay in a clan, you get a check for every level that you helped contribute, right, to. And then therefore you get a higher chance for an exotic, that type of stuff, or a higher chance for a powerful gear or a powerful engram. So I think that was cool. I think the whole change to power engrams was kind of interesting too. Initially it was a little bit shocking of a thing, and then now you're kind of just used to it. So, and just the whole way it worked, right? We were so used to everything dropping, equip your most powerful gear and everything will drop at that powerful gear level, and then you went to a change where it doesn't work that way. It's whatever you were at the time you grabbed it. So no more hoarding stuff.
Can't hoard stuff
to try to get the no more vault of exotics. And one of our clanmates used to collect that. If you looked at his vault, all he had were exotic engrams.
Yeah, I
I
think
was
CJ
holding
did that.
on to them. Yeah, so it was like crazy. So that defeated that whole thing, keeping that stuff until you were at a high enough level, because obviously if the engrams keep the level that you're at. So I think trying to learn the new dynamics of which was really interesting of, grind out power leveling through public events, and then grinding out Dreaming City or Tangled Shore stuff just to make sure, because those tend to drop 5 power levels above you, versus other weekly things like strikes and so forth only drop 1 or 2 power levels above. So you had to get some strategy on how to level up, which is kind of interesting.
Exactly.
So that was another change. That initially I didn't like, but now I'm so used to, I don't sweat it. But back to the clan thing, I think um, adding some extra benefits to that, like I talked about, a trading system for clans would be nice. Where I don't know how you would do it. Maybe you can contribute certain items into the clan. Like if, for instance, there's certain weapons that, from an RNG perspective, they never freaking drop for some folks, but other people get
You
extremely
get like
lucky. Can we say the
two or
the trust hand cannon? How many have I
yes,
gotten? Like 15, 15,
exactly.
20, and like everybody else is like maybe one if you got one, or like
Garbage rolls.
if yeah, exactly. Where like for me, all the entire Destiny one never ever ever got the Gallahorn, no matter how many raids I ran, until it got sold, and I finally got it for like a month. Until it was no longer relevant.
Yeah.
It's like I had to buy it, but I got it. That kind of thing. So there's certain things in the game, and I know why they're hard to get, because now you have these seals. But let's be honest. If I have to keep opening up Rasputin shit in order to find this frigid jackal, I'm gonna
Oh
pull
yeah.
my hair out. I've opened over like 600 of them, and it's kind of like, what the hell, It's all like I'm tired of it already. At some point, the system, I know they tweak that from time to time, but it's just, for certain things, it's really really bad for some folks. So I think having a trading system within the clan, where every season you can pop something into the pool or trade one thing, so you get like a one trade token, would be helpful for folks. I think that would be kind of a nice benefit, and it wouldn't. I don't think it would break the economy in a sense, because obviously clans can only have 100 members anyway. So I mean, if everybody threw in one item that they wanted to trade somebody else for, and you only had one token per season, I don't think it would hurt anything, in my opinion. Um, so, sometimes I like posting that stuff online. Well, I did in Destiny 1 on the forums. I haven't posted any of that stuff of late, only because, I want to cry over spilled milk these days. There's plenty of stuff. There's plenty of stuff that they've given us, so
Tons of stuff.
it's been great. What else would I say in terms of changes? Oh, I do like the new Gambit mode. So I do like some of these new modes that they've given us. Obviously, the escalation protocol, the well, Gambit is really nice. It's a nice change of pace. Although I do like the fact that they listen to the community in terms of people dropping out and having, putting the ban hammer for a little while on people that keep dropping out of those matches. But you still get problems where it's just uncomfortable to be in there, and the matches last a long time. It's not like they're really quick.
You're committed.
I mean, if you're committed, yeah. If you go to escalation protocol, there's 7 levels, but if you get tired, you could just jump out at any level if you want,
Exactly.
and not be penalized for it. For Gambit, on the other hand, a 20-minute match just for one round, you're like, it's like it could hurt, especially if you have good good invasions going back and forth and people getting killed and resetting. I mean, it's really nice when you have good teams that can battle things out, but when you're on a bad team, it feels like it drags on forever. And particularly since it's 3 matches a week for the weekly, it can get. It's something of late I've avoided. I only do it for the weekly, and that's about it. Once I had my 3 resets last season, I'm done. I'm done.
Right.
I don't care about 2-time or 3 times bonus. And that's another thing. The 2-time and 3-time bonus, which came, I think, initially in Rise of Iron, right? Those bonus mechanics, I think, really help.
Yeah.
I do like the the leveling system now for all the stuff. Although I kind of miss the leveling before these last couple of expansions when Destiny 2 first landed, where we were leveling up the Vanguard in a season, or we were leveling up each of the vendors. So I kind of missed that in a sense because you lose a little bit of the reason of turning in all the stuff, right? So now you're turning it in for engrams, and you're like, yeah, but the legendary engrams drop way lower.
Super low,
so
yeah.
why would I want them? Yeah, it's just like,
Maybe
why would I
for-
want them, you know?
Certain roles, but that's about it now these days.
Yeah, I mean, like right now, if I go to Zavala and go ahead and check how many things I have to turn in, I have like 1,000, Banshee, thousands of gun parts, and I don't use them because what for? I'm filling up my vault space with gun parts, because there's no reason, and they're gonna have to figure out something about that because just like legendary shards, now legendary shards you spend them quite quickly, and so. And you still have a lot, but you still spend them quite quickly. For gunsmith parts and for these, planetary vendors like Asher and Anna Bray, there's really no reason to go back down there unless there was a particular weapon that you wanted for some reason. But there's so many good weapons these days. I don't see why you would go back to those vendors at all. And I don't know, they're just a little bit irrelevant in my point of view at this point in time. Once you get into the end game content, outside of questing certain quests that require you to go to them, I don't see the benefit of getting engrams from them. Again, outside of completing collections, I don't see why you would go back to them. Yeah, so I think that needs to be fixed a little bit. So that's an economy thing. But outside of that, I think a lot of the things that they've done since the Taken King have been really good. Just allowing you to play a lot in your own style. If you want to just do PvE stuff, there's plenty of stuff to do. If you want to do PvP, I can't speak too much about that. I do like the Mayhem and some of the other modes that are in Crucible. I do like the quick play list if you need to just jump in and out. But I don't do a lot of competitive like you do, so I don't get the sweatiness challenge that you guys go through. I know there's been lots of inkling because Trials hasn't come back, and I think I kind of agree with some folks that I doubt that Trials will come back, only because of the way Destiny kind of works today. I don't know if that play style is or that that mode works well. I think there's some good videos out there of folks kind of explaining why that is and why they don't think it'll come back, kind of the way Destiny 2 is structured and the weapons are structured and things like that. So I don't know, but I do I laugh at you guys and all the steps that you guys go through to get like the Luna's Howl and all the other the weapons you guys get for doing competitive. So and I am kind of jealous that we don't get to technically get that on our side of the fence. Actually, we do. I think what was the last weapon that they allowed us to grab? I think it was when Destiny 2 first dropped. There was a weapon that you guys were after, right? In competitive, and now it's kind of available through a quest line.
Oh, the Richard's
from
Claymore.
Shaxx. Yeah, the Claymore. So, but those have tons of steps too that are Crucible related. So it's kind of like if you don't like PvP, there's no way for you to get that stuff. So it's kind of interesting. But I think, like I said, the time-gated stuff, like the stuff for the Whisper, those were all really cool stuff, and that all came from the Black Spindle Destiny 1 days. So there were some lessons learned and some things that they took on into Destiny 2, or I should say they forgot about it in Destiny 2, but then brought back through the expansions. And I think it's really, with Forsaken, is really at a good place right now. I think it's a nice melding of all the Destiny 1 stuff and Destiny 2 stuff. It's really in a good place, lots of content to do. But again, I think, if you're an endgame content player, right now there is a lot of stuff to do, and it seems like by the time you get it done, there's a new expansion right around the corner. So that's a good thing because it can get very repetitive and very boring. And I know myself and a lot of other players that we play with that once you leave the game and move on to something else, it's pretty difficult
to come back.
give your life. Yeah, really difficult to give your life back to Bungie. Because you know how much of a commitment it takes to kind of play this game day in, day out. Yeah, but I've been liking it, and the Forge is a nice new thing. Although I don't know, the weapons and some of the roles are kind of lackluster right now. But I do like if I had to choose the two so far, I think the pulse rifle isn't too bad, and I think the heavy machine guns. Oh, and bringing back machine guns, the Thunderlord and everything else, really good decision on their part. And I also like the decision of the bows. The bows are kind of interesting. They're not really my play style. They remind me a little bit of folks that specialize with hand cannons like yourself. You love the hand cannon, rolling it as a primary. I can't stand rolling a hand cannon as a primary. But, I'm more of a ranged player. All that jumping and sliding around that you guys do from PvP. I don't tend to do that a lot in my PvE playstyle. So auto rifles, pulse rifles. I do miss scout rifles though. I don't feel that they have really a purpose right now. So
Correct.
That's one thing I'm not. I used to run the Mida all the time, and what was the nice one out of the Taken King that I used to run all the time? The Chelis, Chelchis, however you pronounce it. The Doom of Chelichis, whatever. I always muck up these names. It's like, who made these names? The Eastern European names. I'm sorry for anybody that speaks, has a Eastern European language like those Cyrillic languages. Don't mean to offend, but I couldn't speak them if I wanted to, and some of these names, I have no idea. Quillen's Terminus, who the hell came up with Quillums? So like, what kind of lame is that? Or Illumilim, I'm like, what? I'm like, just call it the Frenzy, cut it off. I don't know what's up with all these names, these weird ass names. But some of those weapons, like Taken King weapons, there wasn't really a bad raid weapon. Today, I think if you looked at the current raid weapons, I would say there's only one that I really enjoy, and that's the Chattering Bone. That's like the best one, right? The rest of them I could take or leave. I think, if I go into my inventory, what else do I have? I don't think there's a single raid weapon that I utilize. Almost all of them are weapons from other things. So like Bygones, a great weapon from Gambit. The Tiger Spite, a great auto rifle from from the Well, Dreaming City, right? Folks go ahead and use Go Figure, but that's a regular drop out of the Dreaming City, or Tangled Shore. The Trust Hand Cannon, a drop out of a Gambit, right? So, the Aquilo Shotgun from EP, there's nothing there. Whereas in the Taken King, you would run that raid weapon out on the wild. In Vault of Glass, you would run those raid weapons outside of the raid, right? And so now you really do not see those raid weapons. They don't feel very unique or powerful in the raid, and they don't feel very unique and powerful outside of the raid. So I don't know. I think that's something that they might have to fix, in my opinion. Because everything else is compared to the past. Because it made going to the raid very special. You would grind for that gear, right? Because those weapons were both good inside and out. I mean, what was the one scout rifle in Destiny 1 that we love so much?
Vision of Confluence?
Yes, the Vision of Confluence. That felt so good. And then there was also a pulse rifle that you ran. I don't think I got it.
Yes, Spider ran.
Yeah, so see, all that stuff was really good, and that was stuff that you got from the raid, and it worked well on the raid, and it worked well outside the raid, and you would run it everywhere. But nowadays, it's like, meh, You know, I take it or leave it. Yeah, it's like every weapon that's not in the raid is great, you know, to run, and no one's running any raid weapons outside of the Chattering Bone with good rolls. I think that's the only one that I run on my hunter right now. But everybody, the other two characters, the Warlock and Titan,
Like,
don't have a single.
Is awful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's just nothing that's.
The hand cannon's alright.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? And I would say the exotic, the Thousand Voices, is great, right, for you. Yeah, I haven't got that. So I like the fact that they kept the tradition of getting a certain exotic only from the raid.
Yes.
So that was great. But outside of that, I mean, what else, you know? So I don't know. There's some good things and some bad things that they can fix. Oh, I liked, obviously, one other change that happened between that time period from taking King over is the swords. Right, so having the swords back in was good. Although I don't think the swords play as much relevance right now as they did.
No.
Like in the Dark Below and that type of stuff.
Yeah, compared to like the Raised
Dark
Lighter.
Yeah, the Raised Lighter. Yeah. Those were really powerful and had a real awesome use to them and great mechanic. I just think they're an afterthought right now. So scout rifles are an afterthought. I mean, you could take them out of the game and it wouldn't break. That's what I mean by afterthought. You could take the scout rifles out and no one would. There would be some folks that would cry, but it would not break the game in any way. The pulse rifles, you could hit for distance with those pretty well these days. So there's nothing there where, you know, that would be broken by taking those guys out. And the swords, quite frankly, outside of. Which is the Void Sword that we use now? There's
Black
only
Talon.
one, the exotic one. The Black Talon. That's the only sword that provides you an advantage. And what I mean by that is it lets you hit at distance where you don't think a sword would have a distance damage, you know? And so it surprises you. So you could actually play, especially in PvP, that sword actually plays well. But that's really the only one. The rest of them, you could take them all out and you wouldn't give a crap either, you know?
Exactly.
So,
well, the raid sword was pretty decent.
Is it?
The one from Leviathan?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because that one was like, you could stack up damage with that one, or whatever.
Yeah, and right, we didn't talk about Leviathan raid. That for Destiny 2, it was kind of like Destiny 1, where the best feature of the game was the raid, right?
Yes.
So I think where we compare those old games and expansions to the current state, I think the current state has more to offer outside of the raid that's enjoyable. All right, where you have EP, you have the well, you have the changes in the Dreaming City, you have the Tangled Shore now, you have the raid, because if you look at Destiny 2, the best aspect of it was the Leviathan raid and the raid layers, right? That was like the best thing of that, right? That mechanic, being able to go in with the cold hearts at the end and kill Callus, you know, was really awesome. Or learning the dog mechanics and not killing your dog early, you know, that kind of thing. So those are all fun things. But again, we all know the raid is supposed to be one of the pinnacles of any game that has raids or these type of end game events. But the thing is, it can't be the only thing that drives the game, because then what ends up happening is you become bored of it. And you know that for me, because I left for a while, right?
Yes.
I played for a long while, and then I didn't do any of those raid layers. After beating Leviathan over and over, I was like, I'm out. You know, I need to get my life back. I don't want to play it, because the normal weekly grind was just boring. You know, it just felt very repetitive to me, and I didn't want to do it. So I stepped back until the expansions, and then I'm back in. And like right now, like I said, there's just so much to do, and especially with teammates and clanmates, jumping into a well, jumping in escalation protocol, doing the raid. Even the Nightfall challenges are really great. And that change was kind of interesting the first time that happened. If you recall, the match shields and the timer. If you notice, that timer never came back. Right? It's really not there anymore because it became like too difficult to do with random teams.
Yeah, that was rough before.
It was really rough, but I do like the 100K challenge now. So if you're looking for a Nightfall challenge, so that's what I'm saying. There's just a lot more to do outside of the raid, and realistically, you can grind everything and never touch the raid and still find enough to do that's challenging and that you can still climb up to max level. I mean, we have a couple of clanmates that have not done the raid at all, and they're grinding toward max level slowly but surely, but they're doing it, right?
Exactly.
And they're not missing out on any key weapons. You know, if they never did the raid outside of 1,000 voices and Chattering Bone, what would they be missing? You know what I'm saying? Outside of that, of experiencing it, there would be nothing. They could still reach max level. They could still get great weapons. Just running Gambit every week, or running Nightfalls every week, or just doing Dreaming City every week. They would be able to get something good. So, I don't know. I think we're in a good state from where we were. And like I said, lots of changes. Obviously, how the loot works, the fact that we don't have any ammo synth anymore. The time gate stuff, the public event stuff that we talked about, the changes to weapon dynamics in terms of scout rifles and not being meta anymore, and how swords work. I'm just kind of repeating the list of the things we've gone through here. The fact that you don't necessarily have to do the raid to enjoy the game. There's still plenty to do with the seasons and each season reset. The triumphs, the seals to chase, the weapons to chase. So there's lots of stuff. I think a lot of good things that they learned from D1 and the expansions are in this game, in Forsaken, and it's just a nice culmination of everything that's there. Now the whole thing is that they've learned the lesson not to break it again.
Yeah, I think
and just to add on. I mean, like I said, I do miss not having story content. And really we're just kind of chasing gear, because I think that can get old real quick. But I think the time-gated stuff with the Dreaming City, where you go visit the Queen's throne room and there's things that happen in there that are story-driven, is still a nice way to keep the lore alive and keep you coming back to find out more stuff. There's a reason to go back to the Dreaming City. There's a reason to continue to forge more weapons. I like the fact that the forges are not open all at once, that they're time gated for every week they progress until we finally get to newer content, or to the end of why the forges are there and what the forge's significance will be in the future. I like the fact that next season we'll get the Drifter stuff. We'll get his backstory and what we got going on with the Drifter. So I think it's pretty good. But I think, my fear with the Drifter stuff, again, is if you don't have this story-driven cutscene content or quest content, how is that going to play out for him? Because he's kind of stuck to Gambit, right? So how does that really play out? I do not want to be grinding out. You can take more players in. Did they fix that? Did they patch that? You can't take 6 guys in anymore?
It can't.
Those bag assholes.
What did we say? Ruining my interview. All right, ruining my interview. Here's Gov. Hey, Gov, how you doing?
Gov.
What's up, man?
Like, just the fact that I just barely remembered that we had the corrupted, that you could do 6-man strike, or that we had the dungeon, tells you how much content there really is that I'm forgetting stuff. Right, and then of course all the seasonal stuff, like us baking cookies right now. like who the hell is baking cookies, or I should say the purification rituals, right? It's not really a quest line, but it's an extra step that you can do to get a modifier that's really beneficial to the raid and to all the Dreaming City stuff, right? The Transcendent Blessing modifier, that becomes really relevant in the raid, allows you to do extra damage. It's a damage modifier, and not take certain damage from taken enemies. That, that's really nice. And the fact that if you want a piece of that on every gear that you have, you can do it. You just got to do these purification